Welcome to the Bywords Show. I'm your host, Hannah Hughes. Bywords is all about equipping women for purposeful living by starting conversations, celebrating stories, and inspiring faith. In a world that applauds the hustle, I'm here to help you break free from the lies and come back to what really matters. It's time to get real, get rooted in truth, and come alive in relationship with Jesus so you can show up to each day with intention and confidence no matter where you're at in your story. Here we believe that embracing our stories brings hope, healing, and purpose to the process, and sharing our stories helps others do the same. Whether you're looking for a midweek faith refresh, practical tools for pursuing your dreams, or just need some good old-fashioned girl talk, you're in the right place. Grab your latte and let's dive in. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Bywords podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Today is the day. If I'm being honest, I'm so sleepy today, but I am going to work in a little bit. So I haven't had my morning coffee. It's actually going to be an afternoon coffee today, but we're holding out for that. I just wanted to pop in really quick for this episode because I've been reading, actually, I'll show you. I've got it right here. I've been reading this book by Hallie Dye, You're Still a Good Mom, Motherhood Surrendered to the One Who Never Fails, Even When You Feel That You Have. And it is so good. She and I are actually going to be on each other's podcast soon, so stay tuned for that. But this book has been so encouraging to me because it's not like a motherhood how-to book. There are some things in the motherhood realm where I'm always like, that's fluffy for me. I have just loved this book and I've been talking about it with my friend, and she was explaining to me some of the struggles that she has in motherhood, comparing herself to other moms, or the mom guilt of feeling like she's not enough or she's not doing enough, and wanting her kids to be on the right track in life, and all of those well-intentioned things that we sometimes get so worked up about in motherhood. And I was telling her, honestly, I struggle in motherhood in different ways than I have heard some moms talk about. And so I started opening up to her about how I sometimes feel bad because, I am a working mom and I am passionate about my work. I love being able to podcast. I love working at my coffee shop and doing these other projects. There are times when the mom guilt creeps in for me, and it makes me wonder if I'm not a good enough mom because I'm not the stay-at-home homeschool bread making mom that's always with my kids 24/7. And I was just explaining to her, like motherhood doesn't feel like the thing in my life that I get my sense of worth from. Like I know for some women, like growing up, they can't wait to be a mom, and then they become a mom and it's beautiful and it's everything they ever dreamed of. That was not my story. I always knew like I'd probably get married and have kids someday, but I wasn't the girl that couldn't wait to be a mom. I have had struggles in motherhood and I don't talk about them as much. I mean, obviously, I've shared with you guys a lot of my like pregnancy and miscarriage journey, but motherhood specifically has been challenging for me. And I think it is for all moms at some point or another in different seasons and stages of life. But I wanted to talk today, just in case maybe there's a mom out there who feels the same way I do sometimes, about this scary, vulnerable thought that I sometimes have. And it's this: I don't always love motherhood. Does that make me a bad mom? And I want to be very clear here. I adore my children. I love being a mom to my children. But motherhood sometimes feels very opposite of what's natural to me. It feels very, like there are things in motherhood that are just hard. Motherhood is a very refining, holy work that is hard and it's exhausting sometimes. And it is also beautiful and it is so sweet. And there's nothing else in the world that compares to being a mom. Like, if you're a mom, like, you just know there's no other love that's like a love that you have for your own children, or in whatever capacity. If the children in your life, like that's a special love that can't be matched with anything else. And so I love my kids, but that doesn't mean motherhood always feels easy for me. And I've talked a little bit in the past about how it took me a while to like, quote, find my stride in motherhood. But there have just been seasons, especially as our son, who's our oldest, is getting older, where I just feel like, I don't know if I can do this, Lord. And so I just wanted to have like a real chat with you guys, like heart to heart, just honestly opening up about a few things that I've never really shared about. But the more that I start processing with a few close friends, the more I realize, oh, maybe I'm not the only one, which, surprise, surprise, we usually never are the only one. But this is just something that's a little bit vulnerable, as moms, it can be a touchy subject sometimes. So I will be the one to raise my hand and go first and say, sometimes I don't love motherhood. And I wonder if that makes me a bad mom. And so I just want to unpack that today. So I'll give a brief kind of background about what the past few years of motherhood, like my short motherhood journey, has been like. Our son will be 6 in October this year. And so for the past 6 years, I have been a mother, and it has been quite the journey. Jude is our fiery, precious, sweet, tender, strong willed, stubborn, brilliant, clever, creative boy. He is so funny. And parenting him has been equally hard and fun. It has been such an adventure. And I remember when he was 18 months, which he was born right before COVID, things started getting wild. I'm a first time mom. I have a boy first, which quick little insert here. Most of my friends who are having kids had girls first. So I have a boy, and obviously boys are just built different. Boy moms know boys are just wild and crazy and free, and it's great and we love it, but it is just another level. And so I'm a first time mom thinking, is my child crazy? Is he just a boy? I don't have anything to compare this to. All my friends have girls who just want to sit down and color and wear princess dresses, and this feels crazy, and am I doing this right? And all of those kinds of questions. And so by the time our sweet Jude is 18 months, he starts crawling out of his crib. He starts climbing on everything. I used to post sagas about this on my Instagram about how he would just wake up at the crack of dawn and start just climbing on our counters and dumping out, my protein powder, my skincare products, or like making experiments with food ingredients and condiments from the fridge. And I felt so stressed during that time. And I will say I've come a long way. And I think part of that season was a big refinement for me, because I used to be this very type A, like if things don't go perfectly, or if they don't go my way, or if things aren't in order, like I lose it and I just can't function. And so, Jude has taught me a few things about just being flexible and picking my battles and letting some things go. It's really not the end of the world. If my skincare is poured out all over the floor, it's not my favorite thing in the world, I will say, but I've learned that it doesn't have to ruin the rest of my life. So, anyway, that's just like a little backdrop for how my motherhood experience kind of started. So, as Jude gets older, we just get into the wild and craziness of toddlerhood, and some things have come out in the last few years just as Jude has started school and he's developing more. And we've had some challenges that maybe I'll share more about at some point. But to give just like a really quick summary, we've just been working with him to help figure out the best ways to support him and to help him thrive through some behavioral challenges and a few things like that we've been trying to, figure out, like, how can we best support him? So that was my first experience with motherhood. And then, of course, I had my miscarriages. So I'm trying to parent this wild and free toddler while I'm also going through a lot of stress physically, mentally, emotionally, and grieving losses. And it's just a lot at once. Fast forward, we have Della, we moved to Colorado, and now our son is in kindergarten, which is just crazy. And I am now a working mom of two. And I really do love the way that it worked out. Like I feel very called to the space that I'm in, and I don't necessarily feel called to be a stay-at-home mom, at least in this season. And so I wrestled with that for a long time, thinking, like, does that make me a bad mom? Like, is it a bad sign that I love going to work or like doing my own things? And I've learned that it's not a bad thing to do that. I think there's a gift in the way that we're all wired to parent differently. And I think there's really a gift in the way that, like with our husbands, God partners us with the right people to help us build the childhood that our kids need. And obviously, we're not always going to do that perfectly, but I've just wrestled a lot. All of that to say, like, that's like my very brief synopsis of my brief motherhood journey so far. But I just want to normalize feeling overwhelmed, feeling angry. Like maybe there's moments of mom rage. We've talked about that on the podcast before. Maybe there are moments where you just feel like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I am purely, my goal for this season is to make it to bedtime every day. And that is okay to say. And I'm saying this to myself as I'm saying it to you. There's a kindness that God has for us as his kids, and a compassion and a grace that we can extend to ourselves as we parent through challenging seasons. And when motherhood doesn't feel fun or easy or light, there's a lot that I think the enemy wants to do with those feelings of shame. And I remember there have been so many moments in the past few years where I've just talked to my friends crying, saying, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel so clueless. I don't know how to help my son. I don't know how to be the mom that he needs. I don't know if I can do this. Why would God choose me to be his mom? It feels really hard. I don't know. And I've just been so comforted by so many people saying that I am the mom that my kids need. And that used to be such like a cliche phrase to me for a long time. I was just like, "Oh yeah, that's just the thing we say, like, oh, God knew what you needed in your kid and knew that your kid needed you as their mom, and yay, sweet and happy rainbows and butterflies." And that is true. And I think I've just had to realize the depth of that and the weight of that. It's not just like a write-off thing, like, "Oh yeah, you're the perfect mom for this kid." And like, "Yep, this is the kid you got." Like, I think there's something so much deeper here and so intentional. Obviously, God knows every intricate detail of our lives and He has planned out every single moment. So there's no surprise to Him that you feel the way that you do in your motherhood journey. There's no surprise to Him that you have certain conflicts or tensions with your kid or in your parenting journey. And it's all okay to feel. I just want to basically start off the conversation by saying it's okay to feel what you feel in motherhood. Maybe you love motherhood and it feels like there's such an ease to it. Like, I was made for this. That is such a gift. Like, I love that there's such a wide spectrum of how to do motherhood and there's not one right way. Right? There's so many different kinds of moms. And I think a lot of my frustration as a newer mom when my son was younger was feeling like I had to fit this mold of being the perfect mom who wants to be with my kids 24/7 and doing crafts all day long and having a perfect schedule and doing all those things. And I used to try to shove myself into that mold and I would get so frustrated when I didn't fit, and it's like, of course I'm burnout. Of course we're exhausted trying to fit into a mold that we weren't designed for, especially in motherhood. And I think there's just this grace that the Lord wants to extend to us in our limitedness as moms that we sometimes think is the problem, if that makes sense. I think that in motherhood we feel like we have to be it all, and if we're not, like if we have one foot in being a working mom and one foot being a present at home mom, or not that you can't be present with both, but does that make sense? Maybe you're a working mom, maybe you're a stay at home mom, maybe you have other roles that you play, and you can feel so pulled and you can feel so like, if I can't be 100%, then I'm not being good enough. But like, we can't give 100% to every single role that we play all the time. Let me read something from this book, You're Still a Good Mom. So, one of the things I love about this book is that it's not a how to motherhood tip book. It's more about what things in motherhood point us to God's design, what things in motherhood bring out in us areas that need to be redeemed or healed, or point to Jesus. And so I love in this chapter where she's talking about God with us, she says something that I think can be sometimes kind of controversial, but it's that motherhood is not our highest calling as women. I think I used to put so much pressure on myself when I felt like, oh, shouldn't I just love being a mom? Like, shouldn't this just fill every hole in my heart and I should feel so content all the time and it's perfect and easy? Like, why does it feel hard? I shouldn't be struggling like this. I want to be a good mom, right? And good moms don't struggle and they don't have bad days and they hold it all together and they're happy when they're making their homemade candles with their kids. And I just again, I feel like that was one of the lies that I was trying to shove myself into a mold that I wasn't designed to fit in. And so that's a lot of what this book is talking about, like the kind of the lies we believe about motherhood that actually get in the way of us mothering the way that God designed us to. So, anyway, I'll stop rambling about how amazing this book is. Just go read it for yourself. It's fantastic. But she says, whatever it is, right where you are, it is not a lost work just because it's a small task. It's not an ineffective work just because it's slow progress. And it's certainly not unimportant work, even when it goes unnoticed. And then the same chapter, it says, yes, viewing our ministry of motherhood as our only calling is a lie, but viewing it as unimportant or unworthy is an even more dangerous one. In this chapter, she's talking a lot about how it can feel very mundane in motherhood and it can feel like, is this it? Like, shouldn't I be like, I feel like there's two ends of this spectrum where in motherhood we can crave so much more. It's like, oh, there's got to be more to my life. I'm more than just a mom, you know, and we fight to like find ourselves after becoming a mom again. You know what I mean? And that's a big conversation in our world today is like rediscovering yourself after having kids. And then there's also this side of motherhood that feels like, shouldn't this be enough? Why do I keep reaching for more? I should be like so happy to be a mom and I shouldn't want anything else. And I should just be happy to be with my kids all the time. Of course, I think we can agree both ends of the spectrum of both feeling guilty for wanting more and feeling trapped and like scraping for more are both unhealthy. And I think they both take away from the beauty that comes from being in motherhood in just the day to day, in and out, one day at a time, in the tension of both, I want to be present with my kids and I want to be present to the call that God has on my life. And in this season, motherhood's a big part of that. But it doesn't make me a bad mom if I feel like I'm not doing perfectly all the time, or if it feels like this is hard, or if there's not an ease to it. You know what I mean? And I think so many Christian moms feel that weight and that pressure of, you know, if I don't love every moment of this, am I failing? Because there's so much talk about just be present. Don't rush it. It goes so fast. Time's a thief. This is the only time they'll ever be a newborn, or this is the only time they'll be at home with you most of the time, or, you know, every season, just make the most of every moment. And yes, of course, that's true. But I think there's so much weight on moms to get it right every day because this is the only time you have this day. And that is not a weight we were ever designed to carry. In this book, also, she talks about how our limitedness as moms is a good thing because we aren't our kids' savior. We're not the one that needs to fill our kids everything. So, like, why would we expect for motherhood to fill every desire and longing that we have? Yes, it does fill parts of us and it grows us in new ways like nothing else can in our life. But motherhood is not the highest calling of a woman. Otherwise, what about single women? Or what about women who struggle with infertility? What about women who choose not to have kids? Are they not living their highest calling? Like, are they not living in their purpose? Of course not. But I think there's such this expectation on motherhood to be the end all be all for women, and it's too much weight for us to carry as moms. There is more for us, but we don't have to fight and claw and grasp for it, and we don't have to feel guilty for desiring that either. You know, things like social media, seeing other moms and all the things that people say we should do, like, oh, make sure you do this special birthday party for your kids. And oh, if you decide to do the tooth fairy, you have to do this special tradition and elf on the shelf, and you have to bake cookies and all these special things. And we're constantly seeing so many other people's lives that we were never meant to. I was reading a book the other day, you know, let me just check my Goodreads. And while I'm doing that, I'll tell you guys really quickly that I started a book club and I'm really proud of myself because I'm such an introvert, but I really wanted to start a book club and just talk about books, not like go through a specific book. But I've been reading so much lately because I'm just loving books so much again. But, anyways, oh my goodness, this is the book. I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen and Other Lies That I Think Will Make Me Happier by Kate Strickler. She is an Instagram influencer. She's a Christian wife, mom, homemaker. And this book, I listened to the audiobook. And she said something in there that I've never really thought about before. And it was this idea that obviously comparison has been around forever. That's the oldest trick in the book. It's one of the enemy's most basic tactics for women and for humankind in general. But she was talking about how her grandmother never really had to compare her life to other people because she really only saw the people that she knew well. Like she was saying how you know, like your grandmother, she probably only saw the inside of houses of people that she was really close to, probably not even her acquaintances. But we see the kitchens of strangers on the internet every single day. We get a glimpse into other people's homes, into their families, into their lives, into their mothering every single day. Like people we don't even know. And we're comparing ourselves to them, saying that we somehow don't measure up. And it's like, this is too much for us to, first of all, process mentally in a day. Good grief, give your brain a break from that. That's so much. But like our hearts, our spirit, we were never meant to be measuring ourselves against 5 million other people, most of whom we don't even know, through seeing pictures of their life and videos of their life every day on social media. That's crazy to think about, right? Like, it's crazy that we have such high expectations for ourselves based on what we see people we don't even know doing. Obviously, there's pros and cons to this because it's amazing that we have the technology to connect with other people, to learn from other people, to be in community with other people. That's so important as a mom. But when we start comparing our mothering to another mom, whether it's someone we know or someone we don't, it doesn't matter. It's taking away from what we were put here for such a time as this, for our own life and in the lives of our kids. And I think God just he just wants so much more for our families. Like, I just see that as such a tactic of the enemy to get in the way of us really connecting as a family. Because think about it. If you're a mom who's working so hard to do her best and be her best for her family, and every day just showing up and being the most present mom, and maybe you're a working mom and you come home and you're doing all the things and you're spending all the time doing the perfect bedtime routine with your kids. And it's like, okay, take a breath, breathe, rest, go to sleep, maybe scroll for a while, and then wake up and do it the same thing the next day. It's this endless cycle of just trying to stay above the water every day, When you are in a season of feeling like motherhood is hard, what I have learned from my own experience is that it's revealing something about me. And I think I shared about this in one of the recent solo episodes about how, like, our pain allows us to see. Oh, I think it was in the Slow Growth Isn't Failure episode where I talked about how when we're in a waiting season or we're in a hard season or we're going through something, like, it actually reveals to us something about what's going on beneath the surface and like the condition of our soil, aka like our heart, like our soul condition, right? And so I think in motherhood, it's such a refining experience, and it's such like a I think of sandpaper. Like, sometimes I just rub up against my experience in motherhood, sometimes my kids, but not necessarily like the tension between me and my children, but just me and my experience of motherhood. To be clear, that's really what I'm talking about here, is like me and my experience being a mom. When I feel like I can never do enough, I can never measure up, I'll never be the perfect mom, I'll never be the ideal mom that I'm supposed to be, the room mom, PTA mom, perfect, showing up for everything mom. And I think we're wired as women to want to show up for people. Like, we are wired for relationship, we are wired to love, and we have the capacity in our God given design to do that well with the help of the Lord. And again, I keep kind of referencing it and then not completing my thought, but she talks about in this book how limitedness is good because we are not the end all be all for our kids. The Lord is. Our motherhood experience is a partnership with God in stewarding our children's childhood. So it is okay if you feel like you can't do it all. If you feel like I am just trying my best, but I feel like I'm failing. Like, I feel like I just can't get this right. I feel so ill equipped to parent my child. I just feel like I'm not good at this. You are actually in a great position because 2 Corinthians 12:9 and 10 says that in our weakness, in our limitedness, God shows up strong. We get access to God's strength in our life when we are weak, which, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, because I'm weak in motherhood on the daily. And then in Galatians 6:9, I've been coming back to this one a lot lately, but don't grow weary in doing good. Motherhood is a good work. It's a hard work. And so those things that I was saying, it's not lost work just because it's something small, just being present with your child or just taking a moment to breathe and do what you need to for yourself so that you can show up again for your kids and be the mom that they need. It's not ineffective work just because it's slow progress. And it's certainly not unimportant work, even when it goes unnoticed. And then I want to read that line again that just like, I just cannot get enough of it. It says, yes, viewing our ministry of motherhood as our only calling is a lie. That motherhood is our highest calling is a lie. But thinking that it's not important or worthy at all is even more dangerous. That's an even more dangerous lie. So, yeah, it's one thing to get caught up in thinking like motherhood is everything. Like, I have to be the perfect mom. But it's even more dangerous to think that what you're doing in motherhood doesn't matter. Motherhood is unapplauded work, okay? Let's be honest. It's really hard, especially when your kids are little. You're not getting a pat on the back and a thank you and a spa day all the time, okay? That would be lovely. But for the most part, motherhood is a quiet, hidden work. It's a lot of washing the dishes after they go to bed, folding laundry that's going to be thrown back on the floor. It's feeding mouths that are going to be hungry again in 5 minutes. That's holy work of motherhood. And I think sometimes that's when we start to crave more because we're not getting the validation that we think we need from our kids or from being a mom. Or we start feeling guilty because, like, why can't I just be happy about this? Like, why can't I just be grateful for this season of being a mom? And I think all of it can coexist. I think it can be true that it's hard sometimes in seasons of motherhood to feel content because we are made for more than just being a mom. And it's also hard sometimes to be present in the moment and feeling like this is enough. And it's okay if you're somewhere in the middle as well. Like, you don't have to work outside the home to be called to more as a mom. You know what I mean? Like, I hope this is coming across with the kindness and like the I'm in it with you ness that I'm trying to convey here. I just want to say it's a lie that what you're doing as a mom doesn't matter. And it's a lie that you have to be the perfect mom. And I think the heart of this conversation is for me realizing that we've just got to get back a hold of the truth. And it's not necessarily even the truth about us. I think it's the truth about our God, that He is good, He is sovereign, He is in control. And so that makes my role as a mom a little less high stakes. You know what I mean? There is a weight to motherhood. We have a very important role to play as we are stewarding God's children in our homes. But we are not the ones responsible for their life story. We are not responsible for their salvation. We are not responsible for perfection. That's something we could never even achieve if we wanted to. Like, and usually we want to. Like, we try really hard, but we can't. Jesus is the perfect one, and He already achieved it. What we are doing is partnering with Him in His finished work to steward His kids when they're in our homes. Okay. Let me wrap this up because I know I've done a lot of rambling here today. Like I said, I'm pretty tired. I haven't had my coffee yet, but I just basically want to leave you with some truth because when you're in a heavy motherhood season and you're just feeling like this is a bad mom day for me, like maybe sometimes you just need a cup of coffee and a hug and a reminder that it's a new day tomorrow and we'll start fresh. Or you can even start fresh after you pick up your kids from school today or whenever you're listening to this, you know? But I just want to tell you right now, mom to mom, friend to friend, sister to sister, you are not a bad mom if you have hard days in motherhood. You are still a good mom, even when you don't love motherhood and all of the responsibility that comes with it, and all of the roles that you play, and all of the mouths that you have to feed, and all of the sacrifices that you have to make. Motherhood is hard sometimes. But I think this is one of those situations where we don't get the hard without the beauty. We don't get the beauty without the hard. Both work together to build something really beautiful, this thing called childhood for our kids. But I just want to take some weight off of you if you are feeling the pressure that you need to be perfect, that you need to get it right for your kids. Yes, you have a role to play, but it's not being a perfect mom. Your role is to be the mom that loves her kids where they are at from where she is at each day. And when we fail, because we will, repairing that, you know, there's so much sweetness, you know, like some of my favorite moments, as humbling as it is for me, is when I screw up or if I catch myself having a really emotional day or I blow up about something and I come back and I say I'm sorry. Like, the moment of repair is so tender when you see your kid responding to you with the grace and compassion that you struggle to give yourself, but God so freely gives us. You know what I mean? Like, I think motherhood is so hard sometimes because it forms something in us that is so deep, and it is just so raw and tender in those formative years. And I've heard people talk about, like, when you're parenting your kids, it's almost like you're reparenting yourself because you're becoming a new person as they are growing. It's like when you become a mom, you've been birthed again into this new role. You know, it's like you're growing up into motherhood while your children are growing. And motherhood isn't measured in how good you feel or how good you're doing. Motherhood is not measured in how much you can do for your kids, how much you can give your kids, the kind of house that they live in, the kind of food that you eat, the kind of activities that they do, the kind of clothes that they wear. As much as we want to give our kids the best, even if you have nothing, like if you have the bare minimum, but you give them love and kindness and compassion as you learn yourself to embrace kindness and compassion, I think that's the kind of home and family and mom that develops a really, really awesome kid that knows that they're loved, that knows that they have good plans written by a good God, and it's not dependent on how good they are. I want to share a couple practical tidbits in case you are like, okay, so yeah, great talk, but what do I do about this? Here are some things that are currently helping me or have helped me at some point in my mothering journey. Number one, give yourself permission to name the hard without it being shameful. You can say that it's hard without feeling shame about that. And that is something that I really struggle with. Like even sitting down to record this episode, I was like, "Oh no, people are going to take this bad. They're going to take it the wrong way. They're going to think I hate being mom and I don't like my kids or something like that." And I think we can say with honesty to each other, sometimes it's hard. And there's no shame in that at all. There's no shame in being honest with God. Like he can handle your honesty, he can handle your hard days. And there's no shame in struggling, right? Like we've talked about that in the mental health episode recently. Like there's a difference between sin, the mom guilt that we sometimes feel is like, "Oh, am I doing this wrong? Like is it a sin thing? Am I going to screw this up?" There's a difference between that and struggling. Having hard days does not make you a bad mom. So it's okay to struggle. It's okay to say that it's hard sometimes and you don't have to feel shame about that. Number two, anchor yourself in rhythms of rest. I heard my friend Barry on Barry say this recently, and I've probably said it a million times in every conversation that it could possibly come up because I love it so much. She says, fatigue is feedback. If you are feeling tired, that's just going to make things feel even more hard, right? So check in with yourself. Like if you're in a hard season of motherhood, maybe you need to retreat a little bit to care for yourself. Because if you're not cared for, how will you be there for your kids the way that you want to be, right? Like a healthy mom, a mom that is rested, a mom that has fed herself more than a cup of coffee, right? Is a mom that can show up and be there for her kids and teach them how to take care of themselves in the same way, right? So if you feel burnt out in motherhood, if you feel exhausted, if you feel just tired, drained, mentally, physically, spiritually, it's not a sign that you are a bad mom. It's actually your body or maybe your spirit giving you some feedback like, hey, I'm thirsty over here. Like, can I get a refill? You know what I mean? And so tune into those kinds of things because sometimes we're quick to label those needs as I'm a bad mom. But you're not a bad mom if you need like 30 minutes to yourself to go take a shower uninterrupted or to go read your Bible. Tune into those things about yourself. Struggling or having needs and having limitations doesn't make you a bad mom. It makes you human. And when you listen to your heart, your spirit, your body telling you the things that you need and you're able to meet those needs, obviously sometimes it's in tiny pockets, but meet them as you're able. And I find that in my own life, like I have my Monday night self-care where I take a bath and I watch my murder mystery. That does so much for me because I know that there's a time scheduled that's coming where I will get some time to refill. So I'm not in mom mode 24/7. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I need a break to be with myself, to be with the Lord. And I come back to motherhood refueled and energized to be with my kids because I feel so happy and confident and content in who I am first because my needs are met. Third thing, remember this is a season of planting, not harvest. This is something that is so, I feel like it's so common, but maybe there's not language put to very often. It's that parenting is a season of planting seeds. Parenting is not the season of reaping rewards. That comes later in life, hopefully, like God willing. But especially when you have little kids, there's not going to be a lot of, harvesting all of your hard work, which is why going back to Galatians 6:9, don't grow weary in doing good. Motherhood is good and holy work. It's not your highest or only calling, but it is a part of God's plan for you and your kids' lives. And so we just have to go into motherhood kind of knowing like today, I may not see the reaping of all of the work that I've done. We may not see that until our kids are older or when they're grown or when they have families of their own and God is writing the story with their life that we can't see yet. Motherhood is sometimes hidden, but hidden growth is still growth. Slow growth is still growth. And so I think if we can kind of reframe that on the hard days, it'll help us because sometimes for me at least, I get frustrated if I don't see progress. I'm like, why is my kid still struggling with this? Or like, why is this still a challenge? Like, why am I telling you this 50 million times a day? When are we going to get this? This may not be the season of seeing the harvest. This is a season of planting seeds. This is a season of planting seeds. It's a season of stewardship. It's a season of small things, laying a foundation for our kids' lives that are to come. I feel like that's kind of what childhood is, right? Like childhood is the foundation where our kids start to understand who they are in the world, who God is, identity, things that they believe, like all of those kinds of things that are, like a pretty big deal. That's what we are stewarding in those first years of life, the first, however long they're living with you at home. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of return on that investment into our visible eyes in the day in, day out of changing diapers, making meals, and school drop off and pick up and things like that. But it is still holy work. It's good work. Like we don't get the harvest if we don't plant the seeds. So I would wager that the seed planting stage is even more vital. So when you are in a season where it feels like you're just not seeing the results and it feels like, what is all of this good for? Remember that you're planting seeds. And you don't get to see the benefits of that if you aren't willing to plant the seeds, right? Like you don't get to have a really ripe, juicy apple if you're not even willing to plant the seeds and continually, consistently show up to water it, give it sunlight, take care of it, steward the garden. That's what's coming when we don't grow weary in doing good. Okay. And last thing, you're not alone. I mean, I hope after hearing me ramble, you are pretty clear that you're not the only one who's struggling if you relate to anything I've said in this episode. So just know that we're not the first moms to ever feel this way. We're not the first mom to have these struggles. Like motherhood is not a new experience. It's not a singular experience. We are in this together, for lack of better words. Okay. Like we have to do this together. So whether that is connecting with a friend, a mom friend of yours, like going for a play date or a walk at the park, taking your kids with you. Maybe it's joining a mom co group or a mom small group at your church if you have that available to you or something in your community. But find other moms to do life with because it's one thing to have good friends. It's one thing to have mentors and, people that you relate to. But if you're in a thick season of motherhood, it's very helpful to have like a mentor mom or someone who's alongside you in the process where you can just feel like, okay, am I crazy or is this normal? Like, are we going to get through this? And you can like go through it together. Like, it's just very comforting and encouraging and helpful to have other moms in similar stages of life or ahead of you to be able to process through all of this with as you are in your parenting journey. I hope that something in this episode resonated with you. I apologize for my drowsy rambling, but I wanted to just kind of open up about that, open up a conversation, because if you feel that way, it can feel really isolating sometimes. Don't let the enemy sneak in and tell you, oh, you don't love being a mom. There's something wrong with you. You should love being a mom. You should be so grateful. You should be so perfect. You need to do all of this right. And like, you're going to screw up your kids if you don't. Like, all of those things are lies. I hope that we're on the same page about that. And feeling weary does not disqualify you or change your status as a mom, a good mom. You're still a good mom. I just hope that today can be a day where you release a little bit of that shame, that you really see God meeting you in your weaknesses and your limitedness as a mom, to see what he can do with your just simple yes to show up today in whatever capacity you're able to in your motherhood. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you leave this conversation encouraged, and I will see you right here next week. Also, hi from my dog, Sunny.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in to another episode of the Byword Show. I love having you here, and your support truly means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, would you leave a quick review? It really helps our community grow and reach more women. If you want more, you can shop my books, Waking Up, Living Open, and Love Is on Amazon, and be sure to sign up for my email list so you always get the latest news. I can't wait to chat again soon, but in the meantime, be sure to come hang out with me on social media, and remember, I'm cheering you on.